right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to The Skills She Needs, Rewriting the AI Career Playbook. And today we are going to focus in on the concepts around AI skills gap, how we get from point A to point B, what are some of the best practices that we need to put in place as talent development and HR leaders, and how we move the career playbook from being stuck where it's always been to where it is more engaging and more dynamic for women. I'm going to share a lot of go back to office things with you. And we have a handout that I've prepared for you to do sort of an assessment when you get back into your office. All right, so let's start the process. Our journey today is pretty simple. We're going to identify vulnerability zones for women in your organization. We're going to evaluate current AI skills gaps and access barriers. We're going to go through the process of looking at how we become an equity focused organization focused around helping women achieve their goals, their career goals within a new AI playbook. Okay. And so we're going to talk about how to design career pathways to develop essential AI leadership skills. If at any point in the data that I share with you, you have a question, please feel free to put it into the Q&A, and I will be happy to come back to you at the end. All right, so everyone knows that what we are building right now is a bridge. We are building a bridge between where we are right now as organizations and where we hope to be as the AI revolution takes over. As we expand into more roles with AI capability, where do we want this bridge to be built? Right now, today, organizations face significant skill shortage, and I mean significant. And organizations can be equipped with the necessary skills. So we have a bridge, two sides, a waterway in between. And for all of us, it comes down to how do we address the future workforce? What does that look like from a future workforce standpoint? So let's talk data. Right now, the AI gender gap is the following. 62% of roles occupied by women are at risk of AI disruption. 62%. 29% of women have an AI skill of some form, meaning they've used ChatGPT, they've used something on their phone, they've gone into maybe Perplexity or something. 29% of women have some base understanding of AI. There's a training disparity. 33% of women are less likely to receive AI training. Women are 33% less likely to receive AI training. Meaning, when we think about training women, we don't necessarily think about training them in AI. We think about other things that they should be trained in, but we don't necessarily think about training them in AI. 35% of women have AI access in their roles. Only 35% have AI access in their roles. So this is what we're dealing with. Which one of these data points was most surprising to you? Tell me in either the chat, you can put it in the chat. Tell me which data point was most shocking to you when you looked at this data point. What was most shocking? 62% of women are in AI vulnerable role. Yes. It's the shocking number. From a global standpoint, and I know that some of you are from non-US based talent leaders, from a global standpoint, it's 75% of roles occupied by women are subject or vulnerable to AI disruption. Let me give you just in an encapsulated way. 20, 25, 30 years ago, or even 40 years ago now, we made the decision to outsource call center roles to India, to Jamaica, to Vietnam, to other countries. We outsourced a lot of our first level customer service roles. Right now, you have technologists building bots to do first level disruption, meaning a bot can answer most of your issues so you don't end up speaking to a person. That's right now, today. So imagine for a second that you are a woman in a global south country working at a call center, and you've implemented a call center bot to take the first set of calls for your organization. Many of us in talent development, we don't think about the nearshore and the offshore workforce that we have and how AI will impact not only the nearshore but the offshore worker. As we advance technology, we ultimately will affect nearshore and offshore employees. And we don't necessarily think about that. So this is where we are. And yes, this is quite shocking. Absolutely. Yep, and I agree. Role vulnerability, someone said. Is this only US information? No, this is global. This information is pulled from a couple different sources. The World Economic Forum, Randstad produced a report 4.5 weeks ago about the vulnerability of women from AI disruption across the planet, everywhere. Everywhere in every country. They actually prepared a report by country so we could see the AI vulnerability, to answer your question. That's why this program, a lot of what's happening in our industry, talent development, HR, and you'll go to conferences and what you'll see is learn how to prompt. Let's prompt this. A prompt will not solve our upcoming talent issues. A prompt will give us something to do, but it will not solve our long-term talent issues. Okay, so let's talk about AI adaptation. Here's another set of numbers that I want you to look at. It took 10 months for Facebook to get to 1 million users. It took 3.5 years for Netflix to get to 1 million users. It took 5 days for ChatGTP to get to 1 million users. 5 days. Right now, the technology is doubling and tripling every 3 months. There's new AI technology coming into play, and the users are increasing every single day. So let's talk about roles. To prepare this, I actually went into Indeed and I looked at Indeed's reports. And Indeed said, prior to 2022, there were no jobs that required Gen AI. Since 2022, 170% increase. 170%. 3 out of every 1,000 jobs is asking for some form of generative AI. There's a new role. It's called Gen AI Management Consultant. 12% of the postings are for that role. And I apologize, my head is a little stuffy. I am battling allergies today. So 12.4 postings for Gen AI. Sorry about that. Okay, so where are we? Right now, 48% of women are in entry-level roles. 29% are in C-suite, 7% of women of color, 22% of white women, and 59% of women have a bachelor's degree. And I apologize, my throat is tickling. This is where we are right now. We have a volcanic eruption. This is what we have. We have skills gap at the top, workforce displacement, technology, lack of training, inadequate talent development. This is what we're dealing with every day in talent development. Sorry about that. This is what we're dealing with every day in talent development. Skills gap, workforce displacement, technology advancement, lack of training, inadequate talent development. How do we get ready for Workforce 2030 if this is our issues right now? Here's our reality. 87% of companies say they have a skills gap. 53% of employees are job hunting. 69% believe that AI is going to disrupt their job. And 36% of organizations are planning for the disruption. These are the shocking numbers. We are not planning for the disruption. We know we have a skills gap, but we're not planning for the disruption. So this is the big number. If we close the AI skills gap, the digital skills gap for women, we impact the global economy by $17.2 trillion. Literally. If we could get more women to understand generative AI, if we could get them more computer literate, if we could give them access to digital technology globally, we would close the economic impact. Let me give you an example. Right now in Africa, there are a group of women who are using generative AI to do microloans. They're using generative AI for farming, monitoring their crops. They're using Gen AI to track money movement in areas where there is limited banking. So there is good that comes from Gen AI if we understand the global impact for women, and we don't just sit in a space and say, this is not going to affect women. This is going to affect women, and we have to be clear in our organizations what it looks like, how we affect change, and how we make sure that women are included at the table at every single level. Any questions about the data I've shared so far? Any questions about the data?
We do have a few questions that came in, Margaret. Deborah asked for clarification. She said, did you say 12.4% of job postings on Indeed are for Gen AI?
So let me go back. So there's a new job called Gen AI Management Consultant. And 12.4% of postings are for this role. This role did not exist before January of 2024. This is a brand new role. I'm not even sure what the Gen AI management consultant does, but that is a brand new role that organizations are hiring for. And according to Indeed, there's a 170% increase in postings that require Gen AI, some experience level in Gen AI. And this particular role is now the newest role that has cropped up in the Gen AI landscape. Yep, it's significant. It is significant. Now, it's interesting because I saw a gentleman that's connected to me on LinkedIn. I saw him post that he's got a new job at his company, and the new job was AI underwriting director. And so I reached out to him in the chat on LinkedIn, and I said, "Can you tell me about the role? What is an AI underwriter?" And he says, "Well, I have a non-disclosure agreement. I can't tell you what the role does." Really? I mean, this is not hard. Just tell me what the role does. So I don't know that people are appreciating the roles that are being posted, but people are accepting those roles and they're going into them and they are being a part of this new AI economy. Yep. Yeah. So let's keep going. Let's pull up our poll, Casey, if we can. If not, we can have folks answer in the chat. We have a poll. And so, how vulnerable do you believe women in your organizations are to AI driven disruption? Take a look and think about your organization right now, today. Where do you say women are, and how many would or could be disrupted? And are the women well positioned with AI skills? Some preparation, but there's gaps. Or there's critical skills gap and limited AI access. Where do you rate your organization? Okay, let's see what the results are.
Are you able to see the results, Margaret?
I'm not, but you can tell me.
Okay. So for I guess I'll start with the highest percentage. That was moderate vulnerability, some preparation, but significant gaps exist. That's at 52% right now. And then next up is high vulnerability, critical skill gaps, and limited AI access. That's at 30%. And then low vulnerability, women are well positioned with AI skills and access is at 18%.
So you're pretty much trending the way everybody else is in our group. You're pretty much trending the same. So by the end of this, I'm going to give you some really good solutions. Let's keep going. Thank you for that. Okay, let's define what disruption means. Okay, disruption is defined as having more than 25% occupational risk to automation. So imagine that you said to someone in any role, male or female, how many things do you do over and over again every single day that never change? And ask them to make a list. And you looked at that list and you thought, oh, wow, we could probably design a bot for all of this. That person's job is now considered disrupted. Is what's left going to cover an 8-hour day? Or is what's left going to move that person into a part-time role. That's what disruption means. Disruption is not everything in your role disappears. It is the most mundane, repetitive task, and how much of that occupies a person's entire day. You would be surprised that most of us have 20 to 30% or more of the tasks we do that are repetitive, monotonous, and mundane. That's a job that can be disrupted. And someone will come along at some point with some level of efficiency and say, we can do this faster and better with a bot. I'll give you an example. I was looking at Synthesia's website a couple days ago, and they had this thing where they said, oh, come and um, take all your manuals and eliminate ever having to train somebody again. Okay. I'm sure that right now we have information that could do the same thing. When I was in Orlando recently with ELB, I looked at all of the processes that they offered. A lot of that could be plugged in and used to disrupt or change the way someone's day to day is operated. So if you think about it, it's not a big number. Let's keep going. So, what are the roles that are subject to disruption? And I want everybody to see that while recruiting is on here, anybody in HR is on here. Anyone in HR. Anyone in HR. Admin roles, legal support, medical documentation, language services, medical imaging is huge. Customer service, content creation, financial analysts, market research. So, who's at risk? That's the question. An entire generation of women leaders are at risk. We have the ability right now to affect the next generation of women's equity right now, today. Sorry about that. My throat is completely tickling. It's critical and that we address inclusivity and diversity of thought in AI development. That we look at the economic impact for women. And we ask ourselves a simple question. What will we do to stop that from happening? It's a simple, simple question. What will we do to stop it from happening? Or what can we do to stop it from happening? The most vulnerable women are in the entry level roles. I'll give you an example. If you go into Home Depot right now, you'll notice that they don't have cashiers anymore. It's all self checkout. They have a couple people that will help you, but it's all self checkout. If you go to the Dallas airport and you swipe a card, you go in, you pick up everything you need, you come back, you swipe your card again, it's overhead checking everything you picked up, and you're walking out the door without ever talking to a person. It's happening right now. I was in the airport in Dallas recently, last week, and if you sit down to wait for a waitress, there is no one coming. You have an iPad on the board. You basically order. It prints in the background. And now they have a little robot that brings the food to you. It's already happening. If we do not have entry level roles, we don't have senior level roles. So we have to really be conscious of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So the question that I ask always is, what do we want next as women? What do we want next for the women in our organization? And what do we want next for the next generation of women coming behind? That is a critical question. So let's ask one more poll. What do you think the barriers are to AI skills development? What do you think the barriers are to the AI skills development? And there are four options. We're going to pop the poll up in a second in terms of the barriers to AI skills development. So, barriers to AI skills development fall into four categories. There's an access barrier, there's a cultural barrier, there's an awareness barrier, and there's a resource barrier. So, when you think about your organization, tell me which one you think is the most significant barrier to AI development in your organization. Is it access, meaning limited access to tools, technologies, and training? Culture, the organization culture, doesn't prioritize women having tech skills or upskilling. Awareness barrier, lack of understanding about AI's impact on the role. Or a resource barrier, time constraints due to competing priorities and responsibilities. What do you think? Okay, so, there it is. Okay, so awareness barrier seems to be our winner. Lack of understanding of AI's impact on their role and career path. Yeah, that's a big one. But I'm gonna give you one that's even better beyond these four. Yeah, this is great. Thank you for participating. All right, so let's keep going. So there's some critical questions that we have to ask ourselves as talent development leaders. The critical discussion points. Who gets reskilled? Who gets left behind? And how do we equitably allocate development to meet the AI future? It's my opinion that AI should be democratized. Everyone should at least have a base level skill, a base level skill, right? And we have to make sure that at least a base level skill is available to everyone. So when you think about the question I asked in the poll, the awareness barrier stems from an individual's understanding of the AI impact, right? There's individual influence that can occur there. Cultural barriers, meaning that the organization's culture is not supporting AI. I'll give you an example. One of our clients issued a mandate to everyone in the company. You cannot use ChatGTP for anything. Nothing. I'm not sure what they were thinking, but they made it mandatory. ChatGTP cannot be used for anything in this company, ever. That sounded good on paper, but it's not the reality of what people are living in. It's not the reality, right? I'll give you an example. 4 weeks ago, my cable went out. I had no internet. I reached out to AT&T, to Comcast, Xfinity, because I'm here in Florida. I reached out and I got an automated bot that said, "You have cable inside your home. It's coming to your house. The problem you have is inside your house. It's not our problem." And it promptly hung up on me. A 2.5 minute conversation. I was expecting to have a conversation with a customer service rep. Instead, I had a troubleshooting bot walk me through some troubleshooting. It declared I had no problem and it was done. That's what's going on, right? So, resource barriers are constraints on personal time and access barriers. There are things that the organization can influence, there are things that individuals can influence. And as leaders, we have to make sure that the organization's influence and the individual influence converge to create a learning pathway for everyone. So, the biggest issue right now around generative AI is fear of the unknown. If you ask 9 out of 10 women who are not familiar with Gen AI, they will express fear around Gen AI. This is from data points from the World Economic Forum, right? Fear of the unknown. So here's the first barrier. If you want to implement some kind of skills development around Gen AI, the first barrier that you have to overcome is, are the women in your organization fearful of new technology? And how will that impact their future? If you think back to COVID, everybody went home. Some people had technology, some people didn't. Some people knew how to turn the computer on, some people didn't, right? We have to think granular. What's the lowest barrier of entry for people who are afraid in our organization? Here's another example. Many of you will have um, plant operations and corporate office. You may put Gen AI in your corporate office and do training there, but the implementation of Gen AI is probably going on inside of your plant operations, meaning your manufacturing plants. But you haven't given any of your manufacturing employees basic skills around Gen AI. What is it? How do you use it? What are ways we could use it? How could you use it effectively? We haven't given them a baseline understanding, but it's really easy and quick for us to implement Gen AI in a plant operation because it's process driven. So they may be using a technology that's driven by Gen AI, but we haven't given them the tools of just a basic understanding of what it is. So where do we start? What is the thing that we need to do? So there are 10 levers that I consider the most important things for us to do. We are only going to talk about 3 of them. So it's digital tools, AI literacy, leadership opportunities, fair compensation, diverse representation, ethical governance, learning pathways, mentorship, role specific AI, and digital literacy. I'm going to focus in on digital tools, digital literacy, and AI literacy. I think that is the foundation. Many of us will want to go to role specific AI. You have to get people to the baseline. There are people right now in your organization who cannot use the Word document properly. Right now, today, they can't use Word. They can barely send an email, but it's a part of their job every day, right? But we're now going to layer on a tool on top of that. So we have to at least get people to digital literacy and AI literacy and digital tools before we can say, let's talk about role specific AI. Let's talk about how do we mentor people around the use of AI? How do we create learning pathways? Learning pathways have to start with digital literacy. It's back to basics. Where are our people in terms of literacy, digital literacy, and then how do we get them to basic AI literacy as a combo, right? Any questions on this? Any questions?
We did get a question from Amy earlier, wondering if you happen to have the percentage of women who have a master's or a PhD.
So, the Randstad report has some of that data, and we are putting together a Substack around all the reports. So, let me give you just an idea. I pulled 27 reports to pull the data that I'm using. there are clear reports around the impact for women. The United Nations has done some reporting, World Economic Forum. They've had some information at Davos recently where they've discussed this. So there's lots of data. It's actually overwhelming. So what I've done is sort of just said, let's just pull the high level to start the discussion. I'll be happy in a subsequent maybe follow up. We could give you some links to the data so you can look at it. But what I do know is that 15% of women have degrees in generative AI or in engineering or prompt engineering. It's 15% of degrees that are issued are being issued in the Gen AI space. Yeah. So let's talk about traditional career paths. Typically, when a woman enters your organization, she's given a ladder. You put the ladder up against the building and you expect the woman to climb it. And so this is sort of a depiction of that. At level one, she has entry level development. You want her to gain soft skills. Level two, you want her to get mid level expertise, meaning build your expertise, become a team player, focus on leadership. At level three, you want her to master process, prove herself. Level four, mid level leadership, transition from manager to leader. That's about the time she hits a glass ceiling. Then you want a woman to enter senior leadership. She's the only one there. And then you have the executive glass ceiling. What we are really setting up is pay your dues, be a team player, prove yourself, hit the glass ceiling. Few women make it here. You're the only one. Male dominated rooms, fight for your seat at the table. And along the way, you're an imposter. This is what we set up right now. This is what a woman's career looks like today. This is it. What I want you to do is something different. I want you to think about a woman's career a little bit differently. There are some key steps to up-leveling women. Step one is skill mapping, redefining entry level. Step two is career pathing, using AI to look at career pathing beyond the mid-level plateau. Most women spend 20 years in mid-level before their next promotion. Data points and reality. I am a data. Leadership readiness, we have to rewrite the first level steps. So let me go back for 1 second. If you think about these 3 steps, we have to rewrite them. They can't look like this in the AI future. We cannot give women these levers that they have to meet before they can get from point A to point B. We can't do this. This is not acceptable anymore. And we will not survive in an AI future if this is the levers we have to go through. Right? So the next thing is that we have to look at AI-backed strategic leadership, meaning we're breaking the glass ceiling at the mid-level. And at step 5, we're removing bias from the senior leadership promotion. And then when we get to the boardroom, we have to think beyond the glass ceiling. This is what's going to get us ready to be a 2030 workforce where women are more empowered around AI. And so technology can be used at each of these six levels to enhance women's progress. If we rewrite the playbook, right, then we break free from the outdated linear career path. We replace traditional leadership with AI powered skills first model that uplift women into AI integrated leadership. And when we do that, we are more working with a pencil and we're writing. So we're giving them AI awareness and digital fluency. We're introducing AI as an opportunity, not a threat. We're integrating AI into career mapping. So we shift from execution to expertise. Then we do augmented leadership training, which means that we prepare women for a digital first decision making process. We use the AI to help a woman make better first level decisions. And then we look at AI backed career acceleration. We move away this concept of you have to spend months and years in a role. We move that out and we come back to a different lens. And then we look at AI first effectiveness and readiness to ensure that women are leading the AI transformation. And when we finally get to the boardroom, we look at how we shape policy and corporate governance. And we lean in to say women who are currently in the boardroom must be at the table of shaping policy and corporate governance around AI and how it is used. This is what rewriting the AI career book playbook looks like. Let's keep going. So when we do this, this is how it looks. I call it ACAM, AI CAM, right? It's AI awareness and digital fluency, meaning we introduce AI as an opportunity, not a threat. We build AI literacy across all levels in an organization. We are inclusive of everyone, meaning women, young people, people who are senior in their roles, people who may be getting ready to exit the role even. Because our primary goal is digital fluency. At the next level, we look at career mapping. We shift from execution to expertise. We connect women's existing skills to AI driven career opportunities. We enable role transition through AI upskilling. And we determine what that upskilling looks like. And then we go to this preparation for digital first decision making. We provide AI strategy. For example, I am an early AI adapter. I can put 40 reports into ChatGPT and ask it to pull out data for me. I can ask it to build models with the data. If you want women to be better decision makers, you have to teach them how to do that at a base level today, not later, today. And then we really work on cross functioning. There should be no roles where AI is being discussed where there's not a woman at the table. If AI implementation is occurring in your IT department, then talent development and HR needs to be a part of that discussion. Because ultimately, you have the people process, they may have the IT process, but there has to be a shared resource, a shared readiness for all employees at all levels to make sure that adaptation occurs. Will there be people who are fearful? Yes. Will we leave them behind? No. But we will make sure that we start with this digital fluency so that people are not fearful of what's coming next. So, an AI first executive readiness, meaning that we sponsor women for AI focused executive roles. We enable AI into corporate leadership training programs. And finally, we position women around AI ethics and innovation. We have not talked on this program about AI ethics. AI ethics is going to be the next lever that we as women have to be a part of. The ethical use of AI to make sure that women are not eliminated from the workforce. So that's coming. But there's no reason for us to not talk about it now as a part of what we think and what we do. All right, let's keep going. So, one of the things that I recommend that talent development really get used to doing is what's called transferable skills assessment. I come to talent from workers' compensation. So, I was a workers' comp adjuster years ago. I come to this from that end. We've always done transferable skills analysis. Most talent development leaders have never done a transferable skills analysis. I went out on the Google, I found this checklist. It's from the University of Toledo, and I brought this here as an example. In order for us to figure out and to avoid disruption, we have to know what skills people have right now. In order to overcome the skills gap, we have to be very clear about what skills people have today. Every organization is talking about skills gap. Very few people understand what skills are. There's actually matrices built around skills. So if you are going to roll out an AI implementation, then you have to evaluate transferable skills. We have to start to redesign job descriptions to be skill based. What are the exact skills that this job requires? Is it financial? Is it public speaking? What is the skill? Not just the task that we are doing, but the skill. We have to look at our hiring and promotion process, and then we have to train our hiring managers to recognize non traditional career pathways for AI driven roles. Because if we have a skill shortage and we have a people shortage, then we have to look at how we are looking and creating pathways moving forward. So the new model says we're not waiting for a seat at the table. We're at every level, we're going to include women. And AI is a career accelerator, not a career detractor. It's a leadership tool, it's a career pathing tool. How do we make that a part of what we do in talent development? So there's a fourth step for those of you women on this call today, this webinar. Developing AI fluency is a part of your job as a woman. Getting digital resilience is a part of your job. Women need to have AI fluency and digital resilience. You have to identify your own transferable skills. What do you know now, and how does that transition into the future? We have to invest in AI specific upskilling, and we have to advocate for AI equity for women leaders. So, critical questions. I'm going to give everyone this. We have a handout that we've created. So, you will get these critical questions. I want to leave time for any more questions. Do we have any more questions?
We did get one more question in the Q&A box. Deborah is asking if you could share the source for that transferable skills checklist table you showed us again.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're planning to write an article about this presentation. So I will include that in the article for sure. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yep, we just got another one. Jackie asks, where do I go to start training myself in AI? I see Ooh, courses. Is that a good place to start? Knowing my employer doesn't provide any training currently.
Yep. That's a great question. I think we have to take it upon ourselves to go do the learning. Coursera is a great place. There are lots of free programs on Coursera. Just taking a prompting course would be good. Just even a digital landscape. What AI tools are currently out there right now? Yeah. So Kenya asks, do you see the skills first movement as an early step for the AI readiness? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so the executive support is going to be built around where are you in the AI adaptation cycle? If you are getting ready to do AI adaptation, then you absolutely have to do a skills first movement. You have to figure out what are the skills we have in our organization. Let me give you an example. If somebody got hired 5 years ago and they went back and they got a bachelor's degree and they never told anyone that they have that degree, how would you know that they have some underlying skill? We have to survey our employees, ask them about their skills. We have to have micro discussions around skills, trainings that they've taken. What I find often is an organization will pay for a group of people to go take a class and never come back and ask them what happened. Never incorporate it into their daily work at all. So you have these people who have taken training who have no connection back to the job. So I'm going to skip through this. We've already covered a lot of the data. So here's 5 go back to office things that I'd like you to do. Implement your AI upskilling program. Invest in AI literacy training targeted for women. Access and track the skills gap. If you are hiring for AI driven roles right now, make sure that women are at the table, that you are putting women into those roles, that they're not being excluded and the roles are automatically being given to men. Get a mentorship program going where a person who is very AI literate can mentor someone who is not. And we have to advocate for policies around the human collaboration. Yep, human collaboration. And Christian just put in the chat that you have an AI literacy boot camp. Here are some questions to think about. And remember, at the end of the day, all of you are here because a woman needs you to be here. We are here to make sure that women make it to the other side of the AI discussion, that we are not um, at the end, but we are at the beginning. Any questions before we wrap up?
There's one more that just got slipped into the chat. Liliana asked, in your experience, how does the AI will replace people in companies paradigm influence AI adoption and the culture of innovation?
That is the fear. That is a fear that we have to overcome. We have to overcome the fear that AI will remove us out of the equation. The reality is the human experience is still required. The human experience is still necessary. What I don't want to see happen is women being the ones left behind. And that's the reason why I'm highlighting this part of it, because we are already at the tail end of digital adaptation. We're not at the front of digital adaptation.
And one more question too, we want to slip in. And we know we're almost at the hour. So guys, if you need to jump off, feel free to do so, and we'll make sure you'll get the full recording when we send it next week. But Kenya asks, do you see the skills first movement as an early step for AI readiness? If so, how do we garner executive support in this first transition?
Yeah, I did answer Kenya's question, but I think it's absolutely the essential first step. It is the first step. It is a skills first movement. We have to know what skills people have. What do they have? Where are they in the continuum? And what's the gap between what we need them to know and what they currently know? It is essential. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret. I think that'll wrap us up right on time. This was an incredibly data-packed, jaw-dropping presentation, and I'm sure we have so much to think about, but we also have action items that you gave us. So we're empowered. We are empowered. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Margaret, so much for your wisdom and expertise.
Yes, my voice kind of held up.
You made it.
I made it to the end.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.